Hi.
Hello guys, if you're brand new to my channel, my name is Nikki, and this is my book nook. Guys, I'm so excited for today's video because I'm doing my May wrap up. I had a crazy month of reading this month. I read like 12 books, I think, 12 and a half. We'll get to that. But I read so many different genres, so many different age groups, several different series. I was just all over the place. I had some books that I absolutely loved and some that I really didn't love. So I'm just excited to talk about all of it. Let's just get into it. So if you guys have been following me, you would know that last month I started rereading the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. I started it when I was literally 12 and just never finished it. I reread The Lightning Thief. It was amazing. All over again, literally loved it just as much as I did when I was 12. And at the start of this month, I read book 2 and 3 in the series, The Sea of Monsters and The Titan's Curse. I made an entire video talking about my thoughts on this entire series, so totally go watch that if you want to hear me like ramble about this for 10 plus minutes. But essentially, I feel like this entire series is very much a roller coaster for me. Like I said, Lightning Thief, 100% 5 stars, love it, chef's kiss. The Sea of Monsters, I just don't love as much. This is my least favorite book in the series by far. I just think compared to the first book, even though this is a middle grade series, I feel like this book just gets way more immature, a lot more catered towards kids, which is fine, but just for me personally, I didn't love it as much. I feel like you can totally make a series geared towards kids, but still enjoyable for everyone. I just thought this at times got a little goofy, the introduction of Tyson's character and the whole like Cyclops, like Grover, trying not to marry him sort of thing. It was just weird, and I just thought the quest just wasn't as epic. I don't love this one as much. It's a 3 stars for me. I still overall love the series, but this book is my least favorite. This book, on the other hand, The Titan's Curse, is my favorite book in the series. So freaking good. We meet my favorite god in this series, Apollo. I just love that you got to see so much more of the gods in this series. The introduction of Nico and Bianca, like, all of that was so good. I thought the end wrapped up so beautifully when it was revealed like who the villain was and its tie into Greek mythology. I just thought that this book was so good. I love the whole series, but like this book to me was my favorite for sure. So totally a 5 star for me on this one. The next book that I read this month, I can't believe I only read it this month. I had to like double check my notes because I was like, is it seriously only been like a few weeks since I read this? Because I feel like I've been talking about this book for so long now, because I was so obsessed with it. Corrupt by Penelope Douglas. This book is, again, I've made a video about every single one of these books on my channel pretty much, so you can go watch me talk a lot more about this. I made a really good spoiler-free review on it, but essentially this story follows a girl named Erica. She goes by Rika. She has grown up in a very wealthy community. She has been very good friends with this family called the Christ family. Within the Christ family, they have 2 sons, Michael and Trevor. Trevor is Erica's exact age, literally since birth. Like, everyone has shipped them together, has always said they're gonna get married, they're best friends. But Erica has kind of always been drawn to Michael, who is Trevor's older brother. Michael is the star of the basketball team, like he is super popular, and along with that, he is a part of, I don't know what else to call it other than a gang. Him and 3 other members of the basketball team are part of this group called the 4 Horsemen. They just kind of like wreak havoc on the town, especially on Devil's Night, which is the night before Halloween. They pull pranks and stuff, but they're not your average pranks. They like set things on fire, they vandalize stuff. It gets a bit intense. Once Erica gets to high school, she does in fact start dating Trevor, but something happens in high school where the 4 Horsemen, all of them except for Michael, end up in jail. We don't know how, we don't know why, but somehow Erica was involved with that night. So now we fast forward 3 years later and Erica is going off to college in a new town, and that town just happens to be the same town that Michael is now a professional NBA basketball player in. And she does not know this yet, but the other horsemen, who she supposedly somehow had a hand in getting them in prison, are now out of jail and they're ready to kind of seek revenge on her. Like I said, Erica has always been enamored with Michael, but he's never paid any attention to her, never noticed her, but now, you know, she's a little older and she's kind of caught his eye, but at the same time, he's supposed to be like helping his friend get revenge on her. This book is so freaking good. It's so spicy. You're hopping back and forth between Erica's perspective, Michael's perspective, past the night that the arrest happened and the present day, and it's just impossible to put down. It's so freaking good. This is a part of an entire series called the Devil's Night series, which all the books are kind of connected, but also, as far as I'm aware, you can kind of read them as standalone novels. I adored this book. I'm so obsessed with it. Literally, go read it. It's so very spicy. It gets wild. It's intense. It is very much a thriller. It won't be for everyone, but I was obsessed with it, so go read it. Switching gears, 110%. These books could not be more different from each other. I read Red, White, and Royal Blue next. I have the hardest time saying this title. Every time I say it, it just gets like blah, 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 like caught in my mouth. Red, White, and Royal Blue. This book had been so talked about on Book Talk, on BookTube for so long, and I just finally got my hands on it. I had to have it, and it was really good. Basically, if you don't know, this is about the President of the United States' son and the current Prince of England. Basically, like, over the years, they've kind of grown up together. They've had to see each other at like various political events. They've never gotten along. They've never liked each other. And they end up getting in a very like public sort of fight where the media is around, pictures are taken. It's kind of a big story that breaks loose. So both of the countries kind of get together, their PR teams are like, okay, y'all need to pretend you have a friendship, like sort this out, get your stuff together, like go be seen in public, be photographed, be friendly with one another, basically. So they're forced to be friends, and they do hate each other, but kind of slowly they end up realizing they don't hate each other. They kind of form a friendship. They end up realizing they have more in common than they thought. They open up to each other and end up having a bit of a scandalous relationship. As you can tell, that's kind of a big deal between the son of the President of the United States and the Prince of England. Things happen. This book, I loved it. I do think it's like a little bit overhyped. It made me smile so much. Like, if you want a book that just like makes you happy and giddy and smiley and like want to fall in love, like it's a great book. But for me personally, I have to give it 4 stars because there were just some aspects of this book that were just so unrealistic. At times for me, it was just a little too like rainbows and butterflies and unicorns. Like, this situation was very intense, and I just feel like there were no consequences for anybody's actions. Like, I feel like they would have faced a lot more like backlash, and just, I don't know, they got away with so much. And I'm like, when you're very public figures, you can't just sneak around like this. Like, it's a little too easy. I don't know, just things like that. I don't know, it bothered me a little bit, but like I said, if you can put that aside and stop trying to like look too far into it like I was, you will love this book. But yeah, I would totally recommend anyone to read it. It was really good. The next book was the most disappointing for me of this bunch, just because I thought I was gonna love it so much, and in the beginning, I did love it so much, and then it just went so freaking downhill. Ember of Night by Molly E. Lee. This book, I don't even know where to start. This book drew me in because I was reading the Crave series, and at the end of the last book that came out, Covet, there was a sneak peek of this book. It was like the prologue and the first chapter, and I normally don't read that kind of stuff, but it drew me in. I thought the cover was really interesting, and I read it, and I liked it so much that I pre-ordered it. This book only came out in this past month. It is about a girl named Harley. She has grown up with a really difficult life. Her mother left when she was very young, and her father is just a horrible person. Like, he's physically abusive towards her. He's an alcoholic. They live in a trailer. She has a little sister who is her entire world that she cares about so much. So she spends like all of her days working at this sandwich shop so that she can, the second she turns 18, move out and get her sister away. So that's kind of like the backstory. But as you can tell, there's obviously like a fantasy element to this, which is what drew me in. I will say it is a straight up, like, which I love so much, a pure like YA urban fantasy with a sprinkle of romance. A boy ends up entering her life. His name is Draven. I really can't say too much without giving things away. One night she's kind of like attacked by these guys, and they're like, why do you smell like this? What are you? Like, and she ends up like burning them, and that's all I can really say. She doesn't know what she is. There's a romance going on with this tall, new, dark, mysterious boy named Draven. And like I said, it started out so good. I thought the build up of everything, like, I was so intrigued. I was so fascinated. I was like, what is going on here? Like, I need to know, like, what is this girl? And then I just thought that it, like, once things were revealed, I just thought it was kind of like, oh, okay, so like what's the purpose of any of this? And it just went so downhill for me after that. I thought that the like romance element of it, which I loved in the beginning, the slow burn was like non-existent because it just happened so fast. And then once that was over, I was like, okay, the plot of this story is just all over the place. I don't know, like maybe I'm being too picky, but it's very similar. If you're a fan of Mortal Instruments, major Shadowhunters vibes. Harley in the book has a best friend named Kai, so it's kind of similar with the like Simon, Jace, Clary love triangle-esque aspect. Like if you liked that book, maybe try this out and come back and tell me if you liked it better than I did. But I just found the ending to be, I just found it to be predictable, and I don't know, it fell flat for me, and I was so sad because the first half I literally loved, and then it just like completely like nosedived. And also, this is definitely supposed to be a YA book, but then this very explicit thing happens for like one paragraph in like the last 50 pages of the book, and I had to like reread it 5 times. I was like, wait, what? Like literally up until that point, I would have handed this book to a 12-year-old because that's how like YA it was. And then it got so graphic and explicit and like spicy, but like not in a good way. Like I was like, not the time or place. It was odd. Anyways, I have a lot of feelings about this, as you can tell, just because I don't like to be disappointed. But yeah, this book for me was a 3-star just because all the reasons I explained. The next book for me, another disappointment, but I don't feel like I can give it a full review because I actually did not finish it. I DNF'd it, and that never happens to me. I am a person that pushes through. I don't know, that's a lie. Like if I do start a book and I am just not feeling it, like I don't want to waste my time. I have so many things on my never-ending TBR. I'm not gonna like continue to read something if it's just not doing it for me. But I really wanted to love this book because I followed this author on TikTok a while ago, and this was like a very anticipated release. I literally went to Barnes & Noble like the day after it came out to pick it up. I was so excited, but it just did absolutely nothing for me. Ronbreaker by I never know how to say her last name, Victoria Aveyard. This book, like I said, was so anticipated. She is known for her Red Queen series, which I have not yet read. I do have the first book in that series, and I do intend to read it, but I know that there's like, people have mixed feelings about that series. People either love it or they just, I heard it kind of like started amazing and then went downhill. Either way, I know she's a known author that people like, so I was like, surely this book's gonna be great. I mean, this book was supposed to have like immortals in it, like assassins, like sorcerers, pirates, like it just sounded like a good time. I stopped on page 200 of like 600-ish because I just found it to be so boring with peace and love. Like it was being told from like 5 different perspectives. I felt like I was like reading an episode of Game of Thrones because it bounced around to like so many different perspectives, but I didn't feel like any of the people's perspectives were like different from each other. Like it literally could have been from one perspective. I just didn't think anybody had any sort of personality. Like there was this one character introduced in the very beginning that was like this all-powerful immortal, and I was like so intrigued, but his like internal monologue was literally the same as like the 14-year-old girl. Like I just didn't, I don't know, I was just kind of bored. Basically, like the basic like premise of this book is there are these things called spindles, and it's basically like a gateway to another realm. They've like haven't been active for a very long time, but this evil guy has returned and he's trying to like open the spindles and take over the world, basically. And now these people are trying to stop it by this one girl who is like the descendant of somebody can stop it. It was just to me a very straightforward plot, and I was just reading it and I was like, I just feel like I literally know what's gonna happen, and like I'm just kind of bored, honestly. And so I went and looked at Goodreads, and every single review was like, there was not a single plot twist in this book. Like I saw several reviews that said that, and I was like, I'm just gonna stop. I'm bored. So if any of you guys read this and you finished it and thought it was like amazing and that I should finish it, let me know, and like maybe I will, but it just wasn't for me. I don't want to like judge an author. I just feel like maybe she was so focused on like trying to build a world and like that aspect of it that the actual story was just like, it just fell flat. Like I don't know. I needed more of a story, more of a plot versus like trying to like dump so much information on me. The next book. If there is one book out of this entire video that you are going to read, it needs to be this book. Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Colleen Hoover, man, this is my 3rd third read of hers. I mean, she's iconic. People love Colleen Hoover because she is just known for her beautiful, short romances that have a plot twist, stab you in the gut, make you feel things, and this book was no exception. This is my favorite book of hers I've read so far, and I literally can't imagine that I'm gonna read one by her that's better than this, because like this is honestly one of my favorite standalone books of all time. Like I'm going to read this time and time again. It was so good. Basic premise of it is that it follows this girl named Tate. She has graduated from college, but now she's going back for her master's in nursing. She is moving to San Francisco where her brother lives. Her brother is a pilot and he's not home very often, but she's just moving in with him in the meantime while she's kind of getting herself settled. She's gonna work at a hospital in San Francisco while she's going to school. And basically the night that she moves in, her brother is not home, and she walks up to the apartment door and there is a drunk guy passed out against the door, and she can't get him to move, and she calls her brother and is like, hey, whatever, there's this drunk guy. And he's like, oh my God, let me call my neighbor Miles, like he'll come help you out. Lo and behold, the drunk guy is Miles. And so Tate kind of drags him in the apartment, and he's like belligerent. He's like crying. He keeps calling her Rachel. And he's like, I'm sorry, Rachel, whatever. And he wakes up the next morning and they just don't get off to a very good start. There's just lots of like angst and banter between them in the beginning. He lives right across the hall. He is a pilot along with her brother and is her brother's really good friend. And slowly but surely they realize that they are attracted to one another, but the catch is Tate doesn't have time to be in love and Miles refuses to be in love ever again. So it is purely going to be physical between them. Miles, whenever they agree to this arrangement, he has two rules. One, never ask me about my past, and two, never expect a future. So this sounds like the basic, this sounds like a basic like friends with benefit, no strings attached plot, and you're probably like, boring, yawn. It is not that. I promise, this book is so beautiful. It is so good. You are flashing between present day Tate's perspective and 6 years ago Miles' perspective. So you're seeing kind of like Tate and Miles's love story that's not a love story, and Miles and Rachel's love story 6 years ago. So again, it's a book that you can't put down because you want to know what happened in the past. You want to know what's happening in the present. Obviously, you can expect like things come to a head, and it's just beautiful. It's so beautiful. I saw a lot of myself in both of these characters, like just like the way they like think about life, the way they think about love, like just it was just wrapped up in a perfect bow. Like it'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, it'll make you question your life. It's so freaking good. Just please go read it if you read any of these books. Ugly Love, you gotta do it. So next, because I was in my feels with Ugly Love, I've had a book that I've wanted to reread for quite a while now, and I'm like, you know what? Now's the time, because I try my best not to like make myself cry or be emotional if I don't have to. The Fault in Our Stars. This is, I hadn't reread it in a very long time. I read it for the first time when I was 15, and I read it once or twice since then, but it had been many, many years, and every time someone asks me like, what's your favorite book? This still like is the first thing that like comes to mind. Like this and a few others, but like this always just in my gut, I'm like, oh, The Fault in Our Stars. Which you might be like, girl, what is wrong with you? The Fault in Our Stars is a rough read, but like, y'all, I adore this book so much. It's really hard to make me cry, and I sob every time I read this book. I soak the pages through. It is just the most beautiful work of art. It makes me smile like an idiot. It makes me want to fall in love. It makes me question the meaning of existence. It makes me like freaking love and cherish all the people and all the things I have in my life. Like, it is just so beautifully written, and it just like tugs at your heartstrings, and I just love it so much. Like, everybody's read The Fault in Our Stars at this point, so I don't have much to say about it, but like, this is my favorite standalone book of all time, and John Green is just, he knows how to do it to you, man. It's, again, I feel like everyone needs to read this book at some point too, just so you can understand. If you haven't yet read this, go do it. I totally did not give ratings for the last two. These were both 5 stars, and you guys should know I do not give 5-star ratings lightly. If a book is 5 stars, it has to rock my world, change my life, make me question everything. And they both did that. 5 stars. Go read them. Next, I read the 4th book in the Percy Jackson series. As I said, Rollercoaster. This one for me was very similar to Sea of Monsters. Didn't love it as much. I thought it fell a little flat. This one is 3 stars. I I just think, again, the quest in this book, just compared to the other books, is just not as great. I think that the like storyline with Daedalus, is that how you say it? Daedalus, and the Labyrinth, I just don't think it adds to the overall plot of the story. Like, I only think really vital information with like Kronos and Luke happens at the very end. It's just not my favorite. So yeah, 3 stars for this one, but wait for the last book. I took a little break once again between those 2 books because I was just kind of sad when I finished that one because I didn't love it as much as I thought I was going to. So I hopped over to a totally new series. A series that literally, again, everybody but me read back in the day. This was big during the time of Twilight, Mortal Instruments, and I literally never heard of it until a few months ago. The Hush Hush series. First time ever reading this, and I really liked it. There were a few things I didn't love, but overall, I did like it a lot. It was super easy to get hooked in. It was super hard to put down. If you have not read this, it is about a girl named Nora. Her father was mysteriously murdered a year or 2 ago, and her mom travels for work all the time, so she's pretty much home alone with like not her nanny, but like her housekeeper from time to time. She has a lot of freedom for a high schooler, let's put it that way. But there's a new kid in her class, his name is Patch, and she ends up getting Patch. I know it's a bit of it ends up being a nickname. We don't know his real name, but yeah, his name is Patch, and she ends up getting paired with him as her lab partner, and weird things start happening. It becomes evident somebody is like trying to hurt her around the same time she meets Patch, and it's like, what's going on? As you can tell from the cover, this has to do with like angels, like fallen angels. It's a very interesting concept that I haven't read anything like. The first 100 pages or so I thought were a little slow, and I also thought they felt like very done before, but I have to remember like the time this book came out, if I would have read it then, like 2009-ish, it wouldn't have been done before, because everything that's come out since then, like all the Wattpad stuff, it's all based on like Twilight and Hush Hush. Like, they are what inspired that. So once I looked past that, I was like, this book was really good. Nora had a best friend in this book named V, who I despised. She was a horrible friend, and she just made really stupid decisions and just was not a good human being, and I didn't love her. I also thought that the like romance between Nora and Patch was like really good in the beginning, and then it just went from 0 to 100 really fast, and they were like, I just thought it was like a bit much. I was like, wait, you're like in love? Like, slow it down, sister. But overall, it was a super easy read. Like, if you're feeling nostalgic and you love Twilight, you will love this book. Just pick it up. I'm totally gonna read the rest of the series at some point, just not right away. I don't know, at some point soon. But I would give this a solid 4 stars. Next, I read the last book in the Percy Jackson series, The Last Olympian. This book was so freaking good. Like, this is the most epic ending to a series I maybe have ever read. That's a big statement, but like, this book just out the gate was like bam, bam, bam action. Not a moment was spared. I was literally like 100 pages in, and I was like, how is, like, it felt like it was the last 50 pages. That's how like intense and action-packed and epic it was. Everything was just tied up beautifully. I love the series overall. I really like crap on the 2nd and 4th book, but like, I do love the series so much. I love Greek mythology, and this is the perfect combination of that and an urban fantasy. I love watching I love Percy as a character, and I love like watching them all just kind of like mature and grow together. But I do stick by my statement that I think that if the 2nd and 4th book were removed and just like the vital information was sprinkled into the 1st, 3rd, and 5th book, this would be like the most epic young adult trilogy ever. Like, it could go to battle with Harry Potter. It would be so freaking good. It's just that 2nd and 4th book are kind of fillers that I just aren't that necessary, but this book was amazing and I was obsessed with it. 5 stars. I am super excited to venture through the rest of this world. There's like 4 other series that go with this. The Heroes of Olympus, The Trials of Apollo, Magnus Chase, The Kane Chronicles. Like, it's all one big world, and I'm totally going to read those over the next 6 months to a year. It's gonna take a while, but I'm excited, and Rick Riordan is a genius. And the last 2 books I read this month, you guys, oh my God. I don't know how it took me this long to read these. It really just, I had to mentally prepare. It was a whole thing. The most talked about books on Book Talk literally ever, and it was a lot of pressure. I was afraid they were gonna be overhyped, but I did it. I read ACOTAR and Akamath, is that how you say this? A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Mist and Fury. Oh my goodness. I just made entire reading vlogs on these, so if you love these books, totally go watch those vlogs. It was so funny. I love doing reading vlogs because you get to see my like live reactions throughout the process, like, and I love going back and watching them and see how I'm like clowning in the beginning of the book, like being like, what's going on here? And then my questions are answered. It's a fun time. I really liked the first book when I read it. I thought the first half was a bit like, I mean, the relationship in this book, I wasn't obsessed with from the beginning. I was just like, lacks flavor for me, but then a certain character, Reese, enters the chat and I was like, I'm here for this now. And the end of the book, when it finished, I was just like, holy crap, Sarah J Maas is a genius. I had never read anything by her. This was my first Sarah J Maas, which is crazy because fantasy is my genre and she's the queen of fantasy, but I was just kind of intimidated by her. I thought her books would make my brain melt. I thought they'd be really intense. Like, I just wasn't sure, and I'm so glad that I did it because she is incredible. It wasn't too info dumpy. Like, it was easy to understand, but it was a complex, beautiful world. I loved this book, but this book, I adored. Like, it, start to finish, was so freaking good, and it left me devastated when I finished it, and I can't wait to continue the series. But like, oh my god, this was my favorite book of the month. 5-star. I give ACOTAR 4.5 stars. It was still amazing, but I literally can't give these books the same rating because like, this is quite literally a 7-star book. Like, it just doesn't, parts of this lacked flavor. So 4.5, I'm sticking with it. This 110% is a 5-star. Favorite book of the month, but I still think if you're gonna read one book, Ugly Love, everybody needs to read it. It was so good. And Corrupt, it was just a good reading month. I read so many things. I'm sorry this video is so long. I had a lot to talk about, but yes, 12.5 books this month, pretty good. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all later.